Okay. So welcome, everyone. I'm Wendy Rhodes, and welcome to our inaugural gathering of Tuesday nights with Tikkun Olam. We'll be convening on the third Tuesday evening of each month with Tikkun Olam-oriented programming. Each month, we'll be addressing a different issue. Thanksgiving is next week, so it's no accident that our issue for November is hunger. Please come to Shabbat services in person or virtually this Friday to hear from a trail of tears to a journey toward joy. Will connect food scarcity, fossil fuel, and Native American heritage. But tonight, we'll focus closer to home for a panel discussion of hunger in our community, how you can help now. Rabbi Ike will be facilitating our panel of experts. There will be time for Q&A at the end, but if you have questions in the meantime, please do not hesitate to post them in the chat. Rabbi Ike?
Well, thank you. Thanks everyone for being here tonight. And thank you especially to our panelists. I'm very happy to see you here and look forward to learning from you. But I do want to place this into our context as a Jewish community. If we look back in our stories of the Torah, we find that cycles of famine and plenty occur throughout the Torah. The first families of our tradition, Abraham and Sarah, Isaac and Rebekah, Jacob, Rachel, Leah, Zilpah, and Bilhah, all of them dealt with food insecurity at some times in their lives, right? There were times of plenty and there were times of famine. And that strikes me as a pretty apt metaphor for how people find themselves today. Not everyone who's hungry today has always been hungry. I mean, we have changes in the community, and people get older and find themselves in limited incomes. We have people who lose their jobs in times of pandemic and things like that. So there are times of plenty and times of food insecurity as well. And our tradition also shows us that when we have, we give, that we share with those who are in need. So Abraham, in a time of plenty, made sure to be hospitable to strangers who came along the path. So that story is very prominent in the Torah. And next week in Torah, we'll start reading the story of Joseph. And again, a story of famine, this time a famine that stretched across the region. And because of Joseph and his thinking and his planning, was able to feed the needy in Egypt and all the known world, really, of that time. So we have not just a history of being hospitable, but a history of figuring out structures and ways to feed those who are needy. And in our own holiday traditions and other kinds of traditions, we have the idea of at Purim, we give shalach manot, we give portions to those who are in need. And farmers were told to leave the corners of their fields so that people could come and glean from them, right? So you might say that whether you're in the countryside or in the city, there is a rule in our tradition for you, right? If you're a farmer, then share some of what you grow with those who are in need. If you live in the city, you do shalach manot. You give gifts of those who need it. And the last thing I'd mention is that we have a tradition of blessing the food that we eat. Traditionally, we say a blessing, of course, motzi, which all of us are familiar with, the blessing before the meal. And then we also say a blessing after the meal, the birkat hamazon. The idea is that we don't take food for granted. We don't think that that plenty is always there for us, and certainly not for everybody, so that it becomes our role to be aware and to be conscious of our eating and of those who may not be as lucky as we are, and to help take care of them as well. So that's just a brief introduction from our tradition about how our tradition faces this idea of hunger in our community. I would say we are required, not just, it's not just because it feels good, but required to help others be nourished. And so we have a wonderful panel of people here today, and it's my honor to introduce all of them and to call on them to tell us a little bit about what they do and how they've structured feeding those who are in need. So we have Christine Pischer, trustee from Moraine Township, and Ann Bassey, who is the Moraine Township supervisor. We also have Shiva Mosenzaadeh, the Northfield Township supervisor, and of course from our own Tikkun Olam committee at Makom Sola Lakeside, Sharon Stein is with us as well. So I'd like to start by having each of our panelists introduce themselves and explain how their organizations help address hunger in our community. I'm going to call on you each by name just because it's on different people's screens. You're in different boxes, you know. So let's start with I don't Christine or Ann, which of you would like to go first?
Myself, okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm going to go first, and I actually just started the timer for our 8 minutes just to make sure we don't go over. I'm going to talk about our food pantry, and Christine's going to talk about how we facilitate programs in the schools to address hunger in the students. You know, one of the questions was, what is the need in our community? And I applaud the rabbi and Macomb for recognizing food insecurity. It was brought to our attention poignantly during COVID. But food insecurity predates COVID in our community. Almost 25% of the students in the Highland Park Highwood school district, elementary district, families qualify for free and reduced lunch based on family income. And we have somewhere between 150 and 200 units of recognized affordable housing in our community, plus lots of housing in Highwood that is not, subsidized affordable housing, but it is low rent housing used by members in our community for what they can afford. So the need predates COVID. Who can use our pantry? I think, Christine, are you going to put up the food pantry flyer? Anyone who comes to our food pantry, like any township food pantry, will leave with food. Our food pantry is supported by Moraine Township residents. So if you come in, we will give you food. If you don't live in Moraine Township, we tell you where the food pantry in your township is or where other pantries in our area are. To use Moraine Township Food Pantry, we ask that you prove you're a Moraine Township resident, and we'll accept almost anything: a utility bill, a lease, a school ID, any of a variety of things. Then you sign that you're income qualified. There's a matrix that's 185% of the federal poverty line. It says if your family is this size, you're signing that your family makes less than this a month. It's the honor system. We do not ask for a tax return. If you come to our food pantry and sign that you're income qualified, then you get food. As you can see, we provide the whole plethora. We have shelf-stable food. We buy fresh produce every week. We buy bread every week from a local dairy. We buy eggs and butter and milk. And we have bread and meat. And we have lots of frozen meat, some of which we purchase and some from the Northern Illinois Food Bank, and some we purchase from local grocers. During COVID, we had a drive-through for 16 months, and our volunteers loaded food into cars based on their family size. And, you could come every week. Our food pantry was never designed or available to feed an entire family for a month. We try to get a family to the next paycheck or to the next Social Security check. So we have gone back to, while during the 16 months of we were doing the drive-through, you could come weekly. You now come twice a month, but if you're going through an extraordinary time, all you have to do is talk to staff, and you can come as frequently as you need. And we have some homeless people who come very frequently and take whatever they can walk away with. We reopened our pantry in July, and we have a bilingual staff, and we use our pantry as a gateway. If you're new to the pantry, then our social worker will call you and ask if you're coming to a food pantry, there may be other things going wrong. What can we help you with? We can help you with assistance. We can help you sign up for Medicaid, SNAP, utility assistance, or we can provide assistance. And I've left 3.5 minutes for Christine. How was that?
Thank you, Anne. Okay, so I'm going to pick up where she left off. So food pantry and school programs, I think, are our two biggest ways that we are filling this need in the community. I'm going to share briefly in just a moment, a couple of slides, but let me talk for a few minutes that I have left about the school programs. So as Anne mentioned, it's about 25%. There's a variance a little bit each year, but there's about 25% of our 112 students that qualify, or I should say that whose families meet the federal guidelines for free and reduced meals. And so that's where we come in. And Oak Terrace in particular is the school that we focused on. And that's where your congregation comes in as well, because we have been very blessed to have your monetary donations during COVID, especially. I think you can see my screen now. Oak Terrace is really our focus right now. Before COVID, we were providing about 80 bags of food to them each month. And a lot of those were staples that Anna had just mentioned that are food pantry supplies. But during COVID, we realized that that was no longer possible. It was no longer safe to bring volunteers into the pantry to sort through food to make deliveries. So we pivoted pretty quickly with the help of 7 other congregations in our area to provide $30 Jewel gift cards to our families at Oak Terrace. And again, that's where you guys have come in, and your congregation has been exceptionally generous, and we're very grateful for that. So thank you for that. We're going to try and continue to those gift cards through the rest of the school year. And next year, we're going to hopefully focus and get back to those food bags. Edgewood is another school in our district that we help provide breakfast and snack foods to, kind of on an as-need basis. We also partner with the nurses at all the 112 schools to make sure that they have snacks so that when students come to see them, and more often than not, a headache or a stomach ache really has to do with hunger. And so the nurses can then provide at least a snack for that child, and they can finish their school day, hopefully with a little bit more of a healthier head and heart. We also provide food and snacks to the Highland Park High School Drop-In Center, which is a wonderful space for students during the day to kind of take a break, take a mental break, grab a snack, just to kind of decompress during the day. And we've been really fortunate for several years now to provide snacks to them, as well as our Highland Park High School and Deerfield High School summer school programs, where we provide snacks to them as well. So our school programs have really been a wonderful way that we can involve our volunteers, involve our congregations, and help provide a much needed food insecurity issue. So we've been really fortunate for that. What did I miss, Anne? Anything else with school programs?
The fact that we do have a lot more schools in our district that do have food insecure students, but they had already been sponsored by other organizations, Blessings in a Backpack and other organizations. We came in to facilitate the schools that had been left out because the need was too great for any one organization to do. So we put together multiple organizations to address the voluminous needs of certain schools.
That's exactly right. I'll add to that too, that a number of years ago, Oak Terrace actually chose the monthly program for families as opposed to individual students. And again, that's where we kind of came in and fit that need and provided food in bags and now gift cards for the entire family to benefit from. Exactly. But yeah, Oak Terrace, and I will also add there this year, we just got the numbers beginning of October. Oak Terrace has about 56% of their population that qualify for that free and reduced lunch or free and reduced meals. So that is by far the largest percentage of all the 112 schools. So again, that's the greatest need. And that's where we focused our time and energy right now.
We have a question. Are these healthy snacks?
Yes, absolutely. They are very fresh produce when we can. Snacks, breakfast snack. I assume the question has to do with all of the different school programs, not just yeah. Again, pre-COVID, we were providing food. Now we're doing gift cards to Oak Terrace. But in the case of Edgewood and the nurse programs and the drop-in, yeah, absolutely. We go by their lead. And a lot of times we will then supplement what they're asking for. So let's say, for example, granola bars, breakfast bars, fresh produce when we can, A lot of times, especially for the high school students, we need quick snacks. So sometimes there'll be those mac and cheese containers that they can very quickly make a meal out of. What other examples of healthy snacks? But for sure, we follow the guidelines that the FDA provides as well, and we keep it very fresh and healthy. Yeah.
And it's difficult to find stuff that students like that also is healthy. It's a
Always.
challenge.
Always a
Thank you
challenge.
very much. Thanks for the overview to Ann Bassi and Christine Piescher. And thanks for mentioning our involvement at Oak Terrace. There actually are probably people on the call who have no idea that we've been doing this for a few years now, but used to be bags of groceries that we would deliver, and now the cards since COVID. But I think it's approximately let's see, it's $30 gift cards, so it's 100 times 30. No, 10 times 30 is 300. So 20 cards a month, I think we've been delivering. So
That's correct. Yeah.
and some of that money comes from our Human Needs Fund at the congregation. Most of it is raised by our Lev Learning religious school families to provide those cards. So thank you very much. And I'd like to turn to Shiva Mosanzadeh from Northfield Township. And so Shiva, if you'll tell us a little bit about what's going on in Northfield.
Hi, thank you for having me. So because Moraine and Northfield are both townships and we do similar things, I tried to kind of touch upon some other things. So in Northfield Township, we have a population of about 86,500. And the township itself is about 34 square miles, and it encompasses, just so you can visualize this, most of Glenview, Northbrook, parts of Northfield, and slivers of Wilmette and Mount Prospect and several other areas. But the main areas are Glenview, Northbrook, and Northfield. And our food pantry has been around for quite a while, and our food, no tax dollars are used to supply the food pantry. So it's, all the produce is either, we either get it from the Chicago Food Depository, or we purchase it by donated funds. And we've had we had an increase because of COVID, like most other food pantries. We are, before COVID, we had about 600 households that we were serving. And after COVID, we have about 1,075 households. And for a while, we were even helping out serving Nutrier Township clients, because their Nutrier Township had a fire and they couldn't serve their clients. So the way our food pantry is set up, it is client's choice, or I should clarify, before COVID, it was client's choice, meaning that it was set up like a grocery store. People would come, they had a checklist of items they could get, plus miscellaneous other things. And in those items, besides food and fresh produce, we have feminine hygiene products. We had kind of more ethnic things that falls under miscellaneous that were donated, diapers. So they would pick up everything that they needed. And then in addition to whatever they picked up from the food pantry, they would also get gift cards, and that amount changes by the number of households, the number of members of the households. So that's what we were doing pre-COVID. Since COVID, we have changed to contactless delivery. So people come, park in our parking lot, call us, we take the orders over the phone, choice of meat, milk, etc. And our volunteers package it up, and we leave the cart outside, and they pick it up, unload it, and bring back the cart. So it's contactless. And an important thing I should mention about our food pantry would not exist without our volunteers. It's basically all the shelving, all the food packaging, everything is done by our volunteers. And I can't just, I encourage you to volunteer, and I can't emphasize enough how important it is that we have the volunteers coming and helping us out. I mean, even when I left, we had volunteers who were, putting a lot of turkeys away in the freezer, and they were there past the office staff just helping out. And we have one of our dedicated volunteers here, Julie Schaefer, who went from being a volunteer to the food pantry staffer. So. And also, as I said, because we aren't, our food pantry is not supplied by taxpayer funds, donations are so important to us. And we get donations from a lot of grocery stores, and also, I mean, daily donations that come in. We have monthly donors, we have yearly donors, we have donors who, if they have a birthday or if they have someone who passes, they put the food pantry as a recipient of, I guess, goodwill, checks and different things that people want to write. So we've made it as easy for people to donate as possible. As far as our kind of the makeup of our township, we have a lot of unincorporated areas in central Milwaukee and Deer Love, in unincorporated part of Glenview, with a lot of low income housing. And we have a lot of clients from those areas. And they speak many different languages. They have a very, very diverse township. And it's we try to make it as accessible for everyone as possible. We have a bilingual caseworker, which, as Moraine Township does, when we have a food pantry client, we try to connect them to all the other resources that they may need. We also have a mobile park right literally down the street from our food pantry. We also have a lot of clients from there. And we recently did a resource fair there where we had legal aid clinics and legal aid representatives from our legal aid clinic, and various different organizations in the township that serve the population, sitting at tables and answering questions and making connections with potentially new clients that wouldn't otherwise know about their services. So getting the word out about all the services that we provide is very important. And the township is also a social safety net for the community. So in addition to the food pantry, which is essential, we also have emergency assistance, which is a once-a-year assistance when someone has like a serious health issue, loses a job, or just something out of the ordinary happens to the family, that they can come and get help with their income, utilities, with the rent, utilities, and other help that they may need, and including gift cards. And we have the general assistance, which is very regulated and limited to who can apply for. So all of these together help serve our residents, kind of address, food insecurity issues. And we also partner with a lot of agencies that assist people, and we fund those agencies. For example, Gelfand Fund is the charitable arm of Glenview District 34. Glenview District 34 is the largest school district in Glenview and serves and has about 25% population of free and reduced lunch. And Gelfand Fund is the one who works with social workers, knows what's going on in the families, and either refers them to the food pantry and to us, or we also fund them so they can kind of help students directly that way. And what else can I tell you? Right now, we are not, the only requirement we have to be able to receive food pantry help from food pantry is residents in the township. We're not checking income. We basically think that anyone who needs help and comes to our door should get help, especially because of what's going on with COVID. Once this crisis is over and we go back to normal, we will start qualifying people based on income. And I'm happy to answer any other questions you may have. I don't know if I went over my 8 minutes or not. I'm sorry, I wasn't time.
You did great, Shiva. Thank you very much. And I think we'll save some questions for the next part, because I know we'll have some questions about some specifics about how we can help and the things that we can do. So, so maybe let's hold on to that for the next part. And let me turn to Sharon Stein for a few minutes to tell us a little bit about one of the other projects that Macomb Soleil Lakeside has been involved with.
Thank you, Rabbi. I volunteered at the soup kitchen at Beth Emmett a few times, but I'm not an expert. So a lot of the information that I'm going to share tonight is from two of the coordinators, Leslie Levin Schulruth and Donna Wolf, and also from Rabbi Ike. Beth Emmett Soup Kitchen was started in 2002 by a few Beth Emmett members. They were volunteering at other soup kitchens and realized that there were none open on Wednesday evenings. So that's when Beth Emmett serves meals. There are 5 to 6 synagogues that participate, including Macomb Soleil Lakeside. In addition, there's other Jewish organizations, National Council of Jewish Women, Naamat, a Hadassah group, some individuals, synagogue members, and then, Vanessa,
No, I did this. This is Beth Emmett. And actually these pictures are of the soup kitchen, and that's Craig Leva. So, just to show people what it looks like.
okay.
Craig Leva, of course, is a Macomb Soleil Lakeside.
Sorry,
That's why
sorry.
Vanessa put him up there.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, thanks. No, when you did that, I lost my
Like,
script.
oh no, I
No, that's
touched
okay.
something.
I got it. Anyway, there's also many non-Jewish organizations and individuals who also volunteer. Most of the organizations sign up for twice a year and then have the option of another night or two. Pre-COVID, as everybody's been speaking of, the soup kitchen served about 100 guests a week and then would send them home with a lunch for the next day. There were 10 volunteers to prepare and serve the meals. And at this time, all the meals are prepackaged, and the guests take the dinners and the lunches for the next day with them, and they're serving about 60 guests a night. The entrees and side dishes are purchased, and the volunteer organizations provide the salads and the lunches for the next day. So this has allowed them to only have 4 volunteers on site at a time. There aren't any, they don't do any screening for the guests that they serve. So they just have to come and line up and receive their meals. Some of the guests are homeless. Some of them are just filling in to make ends meet. And some of them come for the socialization, especially when they were able to have dinner inside the synagogue. As I said, it opened in 2002, and Lakeside started volunteering there in 2005. So when Soleil and Lakeside merged, we continued this project. So I think that's it for now, and I'll have a little more to share later.
Great. Thank you very much, Sharon. And I think that sums it up pretty well. I think we're scheduled to do 3 this coming year. So we have 3 dates on the calendar. Not sure when they'll be able to go back to the old style, perhaps where a larger group of volunteers, and they were always nice enough to even kids who would come along with older siblings, as long as there were enough adult supervision, they would always have a job for the kids as well. So whether it was setting the tables or things like that, not allowed to handle the big knives. Great joy to be able to go down there. Actually, there's nothing more fun than cooking chili for 100 people, or something like that. So it's really a great mitzvah and a fun one when we're able to do it that way. Of course, we haven't been able to do it that way for the last year and a half, but hopefully it'll return to something more normal at some point before too long. So we want to just turn a little bit and ask everybody who's spoken already to tell us a little bit what we as individuals can do to help. So think about, one of the questions that occurred to me as you were speaking, talking about volunteers. Do you have enough volunteers? Do you need more volunteers even in this time of COVID? And is there, we do have some people who like some hands-on kinds of things. So those sorts of things. Why don't we turn it around, and this time I'll ask Shiva first, if you can tell us what you need. Feel free to say if there are particular food items that you need. I think we're going to get to that a little bit later as well, but whatever we as a community or as individuals can do to help.
And as you're asking me, I'm having to go to our website myself to see what the latest food item is. So we have a website, northfieldtownship.com, and under there we have under food pantry, we update weekly what the products that we need, like things that we're short of. So at any given time when you want to donate, please go to that website, to our website, northfieldtownship.com, and click on the food pantry to see the most in need items. And regularly we get calls from people that say, I have this much of this and this because I somehow ended up with them. Do you take these products? And so they check with us and we let them know. So as of November 12th, I can tell you boxed cereal, juice and juice boxes, pancake baking mix, canned chicken, canned beef stew and soups, canned pasta, peanut butter, apparently Chunky's preferred, jelly, jam, preserves, plain white rice, and boxed pouched potato sides. So, and then as far as, oh, thank you, Vanessa. And as far as volunteering, we could always use more volunteers. Our pantry coordinator sends an email out once a month, and it's a sign up genius, and people sign up for shifts that they can work. And a lot of times those shifts fill up, but we get cancellations. And if you're interested, please contact us and get on that email list for volunteering. And of course, we can always use donations. So one thing we have done, or we're in the process of doing, is our food pantry is a not-for-profit. It's a 501c. And what we've noticed is that while we can get people food, sometimes there are things that people need that kind of don't fall under any other specific categories that we can help them with. For example, it's not an emergency assistance, or their income level is such that while we know they really need this, they don't qualify. Again, it's people who, if there's a donut hole, people who fall through the donut hole. So what we're creating is we're creating an angel fund as part of the food pantry. So when we're not, besides giving people food, when they need this special assistance, it may just be that it may be just an expensive medication or just something else. When they need the special assistance, we can go to that angel fund and use that money because it's donation and it doesn't have restrictions. Like general assistance or emergency assistance would, we can use that money to help them out. And they're also, like with rental assistance, we can't, from our emergency assistance, we can't provide help to people who are undocumented out of that because it's taxpayer funded. Whereas if we had this money in the angel fund, we could. And, we've had families where children are American citizens, the wife is an American citizen, the head of the household, being the husband, may be undocumented, and that family, the whole family doesn't qualify, even though they desperately need the help. So as I said, monetary donations, volunteering, and that list of foods that I mentioned would be great. And that list changes based on what has been the higher demand in the pantry that week and what we're short of.
Great. So that list is available on the website that Vanessa put in the chat. So
yes.
So you guys can do that and then find it on your own. I had a couple of quick questions about it, and this will apply to the Moraine Township as well. But so just literally, where is the food drop-off site for Yeshiva? Where would people drop off those?
So our address is 2550 Waukegan Road. We are close to Willow. And you just come to the food pantry. We have boxes outside. When we're open, you can just bring the food inside. When we're closed, I mean, now it's getting colder, so not as concerned about the food being perishable, but if it's perishable, please drop it off during our opening hours, open 8:30 to 4:30. On Thursdays, we're open a little later. We're open till 6:30. But if we're not there, we have a drop-off box outside our door where you can drop off.
Great. I had a question that, again, will apply to both, but Shiva, why don't you start us? I'm wondering about things like feminine products that I know are not covered by SNAP and things like that. So do you guys do that as well?
Yes, we do. And when people call us, we always ask, do you also need any feminine hygiene products, tampons or pads? What's your preference? And also diapers, you know, we do that as well.
Right.
I think, if I'm not wrong, we did recently, no, I'm not going to tell you until I verify, but I think Springfield, they were passing legislation to allow SNAP to pay for feminine hygiene products.
Yeah, I don't know if that's happened yet or not. And certainly
Yeah,
it hasn't happened on the federal level yet. And it's kind of unconscionable.
Yeah, and actually I should mention something else. This is a little bit more fun, and not to leave the kids out of this, we have birthday bags that we put together with, like, treats and a cake mix and candles and, like little birthday hat and plates and a present. And we give that out to the kids who have a birthday.
Great. That's great. Thank you very much. And so let's turn back. I don't know, Anne, do you want to pick it up, or you have to unmute? Can we unmute Ann Bassi?
Okay.
There we go.
Now, hello. Unmute is the nomenclature of 2020.
Right.
Let's anyway. Like Northfield, we accept donations at our office 8:30 to 4:30 every day. The food pantry is only open during food pantry hours 3 days a week, so anybody can drop off. We do not encourage people to leave things after hours, and we really do not accept non-perishables because we can't guarantee that in the summer somebody didn't put something in their car, run 5 errands before they dropped it off. So we prefer and only ensure the chain of command on non-perishables, like North and we do have a list on our website, but if somebody wants to do a food drive, we encourage them to call us, because then we walk the shelves and we know that day what we're low on. We have reopened our pantry to client shopping. We did it in July. So we do need volunteers. We have regular weekly shifts where people sort food, weekly that comes in from the stores, weekly shifts where people help out at the pantry, weekly shifts where people pick up food at stores. And we have increased the number of volunteers in the pantry. For safety, we're only letting a limited number in to shop at one time. So we've got a volunteer in every aisle to answer questions and to try and move people through as quickly as possible, rather than lingering over all the ingredients of a thing and spending 5-10 minutes in an aisle. With the weather turning cool, people come up and get a number and return to their car to wait in the rain or in the cold. And then when it's the next number, we hold a whiteboard up and that person comes in when somebody else goes out. So we have kept it safe. We require that all our volunteers are vaccinated and all of our staff is vaccinated, and everyone who comes into our facility, either the food pantry or the office, must be masked the whole time. So we have figured out, we think, how to safely reopen the pantry. And the clients seem to be enjoying, once again, picking out their own food. And we have probably 50 to 70 weekly volunteers at the pantry. Most of them are regular shifts. I don't know if you've got any of the pictures, Christine, of the volunteers and the pantry. But we, like Northfield, fund our pantry only from donations. Because if we were to use tax dollars, we would have to ask questions that we don't have to ask when we're using donations. Our community was so extraordinarily generous during COVID that we were able to purchase incredible amounts of food and distribute it weekly in our drive-through. We also distributed, we're also a 501c3, and from our donations, as soon as COVID hit, the people who were laid off, typically, if you didn't have a Social Security number, you were not eligible for unemployment. You were not eligible for the stimulus. So we used over $80,000 of our 501c3 funds to do emergency rent assistance for people who weren't eligible for tax dollars from our donations. And we also have received, we've also received, we're a FARA, Federal Emergency Rent Assistance provider. And from FARA, we've given out almost $200,000 of rent assistance. And the FARA grant that we have been receiving, and we're going to apply for another, will allow us to provide rent to people who do not have a Social Security number going 3 months back and up to 9 months forward. So we do have many, many volunteer opportunities. We prefer regular people who commit to a regular volunteer. We also, Lakeside, before, when Lakeside was Lakeside, Rabbi, you remember, every May you did a cereal drive for us and delivered tons and massive quantities of cereal. And that would kind of last us through the summer, because food drives do dry up during the summer for us. They're mostly school oriented. And Macomb years ago, not Macomb, Solel years ago, actually gave us the seed money to start our program to buy the produce every week for our pantry. They started us with $1,800 a year. And then we were able to become self-sustaining with other donations after a while, but they did that for several consecutive years. Macomb, the Lakeside Solel community has been extraordinarily generous to us. So we need help with school programs, the coordination, getting the food places. Christine can talk about that. Regular weekly volunteers. The second Saturday in May, we need a plethora of volunteers because it's the letter carrier food drive. We have a food pantry garden that goes all summer. We could use help planting. We can use help weeding and watering, and anybody who likes to garden can do that. And let's see. I think, Christine, did you want to add anything about what you need for the school programs?
I would say, Anne, right now, because we're still in this kind of pivotal time, this transitional time of doing mostly gift cards, reaching out to me, and I just shared a screen with some important contact information. So anything school related for volunteers, you can contact me at trustee.pisher@morainetownship.org. But I would say what we'd like to get back to is, yes, having volunteers maybe do some shopping for us, some delivering, some sorting once we can get back into the food pantry and do that full on. So there will be definitely more needs as we continue to hopefully move in the right direction of this pandemic. But really, as Anne mentioned, any time that you can commit is fabulous. We do have also a volunteer coordinator named Sarah, and her contact information is there as well. So anything you can give us at this point is great, and we'll plug you into what we need. But the needs are going to grow, and so will the need for volunteers as well. So be in touch with us that way for sure.
And
Great.
during the drive-through food distribution, in addition to the families and residents that would come, we also delivered food to about 35 to 50 families a week who were either ill or worked during pantry hours or who were sheltering in place. The volunteers would deliver to the senior buildings where they didn't have contact with the clients, but the elected officials and the staff would deliver to families, because we don't want our volunteers knowing where our families that use our food pantry live.
Great, thank you very much. a lot of opportunities there. And I hope that one day we'll be able to get back to our cereal drive. For
Yeah, it
those
was
who don't
fabulous.
know about it, you know, during the 7 weeks from Passover to Shavuot, when we're supposed to count the harvest, right? Count the harvest of grain, we decided that a good way to do that would be to put cereal boxes actually up on the bima. So on the first day of the Omer, we put 1 box up, and then on the second day, we put 2 more boxes. On the third day, 3. So you can imagine that by the time you get to day 49 and you're putting 49 boxes of cereal up on the bima, there's a formula for figuring out how many that is, but I think it's something like 1,800 boxes of cereal that we would collect. And we were just about to start doing it, and together as Makom Sola Lakeside, figuring it out. And then there's some pictures of, that's one day there, right? That was, I think, or maybe the beginning, sometime in the first week of the drive, right? But we were getting ready to do it, and then we kind of evacuated the building. So we'll see. Hopefully we'll be able to get back to that. I'm glad it was useful. So thank you very much, all of you guys, for being here and for participating in this. I want to ask Sharon once again to tell us how we can get involved at the Beth Emmett Soup Kitchen.
Sure. So Andy Amon is our coordinator liaison for Macomb, and she lets us know usually a couple months or 6 weeks before our next date. And we have the 2 opportunities to help some people make lunches or salads at home, and then 4 people go actually the day of on a Wednesday to help assemble meals. So just look in our My Macomb at Home or on the Facebook page for our next date. We also reach out to our B-Mitzvah parents or Love Learning for volunteers. So there's, as Rabbi said, we've got 3 dates for the year, and anyone who wants to participate is welcome. Also, in terms of the food pantry, we are actually collecting for the Northfield food pantry at Macomb through the end of the month. So if you'd like to bring anything from their much needed list to our building, it will get to them, or feel free to donate to your own local food pantry. You know, there's Moraine, there's West Deerfield Township. Every township has a food pantry that I know of, but check with them as to their needs, because each one is accepting in a different way.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
And not food related, but as a reminder, if you run across people who need help enrolling for health insurance, Moraine has volunteers who train with CMS and will spend an unlimited amount of time helping somebody find a medical plan during open enrollment, which is November 1st to January 15th, to meet their figure out how to, where their budget and their medical needs intersect, and look up their doctors and help them find a plan. So we do that in person if you're vaccinated, remotely if you're not vaccinated. And we'll be doing that until January 15th. So we will see anybody, because it's a volunteer program and not township staff. You don't have to live in Moraine Township to use this program, or our free income tax assistance program that goes February, March, and April with volunteers who train with IRS.
We have a couple of questions.
Great.
One, do any of the entities accept non-perishables that have an outdated code? And if so, do the stores help with their outdated code donations?
We do not. When we're open, if someone donates things that are recently out of code, we have a whole shelf as somebody's walking, a rolling rack as somebody's walking out the door, and it's got the FDA guidelines that it says, this is what use by means, this is what sell by means, this is what best by means according to the FDA, and this is the date on that thing. And if your family enjoys it and you want to take it, it is outside of whatever limit your family size would be. But we prefer not to have out of date food. And we don't offer it for anything that you're limited on.
We have
And,
the same practice.
yeah.
You know, we do take it as long as it's not very out of date. And that's just extra on top of what
It's extra.
they would get. It's not, we don't put that as their normal allowance for that month. It's just that if they like extra and it's outdated and it's not too horribly old, they're welcome to it.
If it's more than 6 months, unfortunately, it goes into a landfill, which is sad because it's probably still good, but it's, and baby food cannot be out of date and offered at all.
That makes sense.
And a
How
lot
did
of that stuff in bulk, I mean, and this gets to a question that Judith Golden was asking about, but you know, I know that a lot of the bulk things from grocery stores go first to the Northern Illinois Food Bank or to the Chicago Food Depository, because Northern Illinois Food Bank is Lake County and other collar counties, and Chicago Food Depository is Cook County, but they get a lot of donations in bulk from grocery stores and distributors and things like that. They sort it for date before it gets to you guys, right?
Well, they do, except that some of the food we get from Northern Illinois Food Bank is not within date. We have an aisle where two sides, it's a lot of federal commodities and foods that some people like, some people don't. And it's a take anything you want from this aisle, as much as your family would eat. And a lot of it is from the Northern Illinois Food Bank and from federal commodities. And we try to note what the date is when when it's on display, so that someone knows what they're taking.
Yeah, and I know I've done shifts up at Northern Illinois Food Bank where we're, shipping out frozen meat to the different spots, and that meat is certainly past its sell-by date, but it's been frozen.
I'll be finished in a minute.
Stays frozen, so that I know that gets distributed. Right? So, did that answer? Well, I guess the question is really, how do you work with those food banks, Judith? That's what you wanted to know.
So just to clarify, the food banks donate, give distribution. Sometimes we buy from them to the food pantries.
Mhm.
So the food banks kind of are the big guys that do the distributions to the different pantries. And we being in Cook County in Northfield Township, we work with the Greater Chicago Food Depository, and we get a lot of our produce, meat, etc., from the Greater Chicago Food Depository.
And we work with the Northern Illinois Food Bank, and the way food banks work, they're the warehouse or we're the retailer. We can buy food from them, and the purchase price is essentially the cost share, the cost of them getting it from the surplus manufacturer to their warehouse, from their warehouse to us. So it's a very reduced rate. And when they get federal commodities, they give them to us for free, and food for families doing TANF comes to us mostly for free. And I'm sure it's the same way for you, for Northfield.
Part of where my question was coming from is I do some volunteering with the Northern Illinois Food Pantry doing distributions on Friday afternoons at the Fort Sheridan train station. So I was sort of wondering, like, are they serving the same people that you're serving, or is there?
We serve Moraine Township food. We serve Moraine Township residents as Northfield serves Northfield Township residents. When the food banks do pop-ups, anyone can use it. You could come from Round Lake, you could come from Waukegan, and many do. I will talk with Scott about the ratio of the zip codes in our township to not our township for their weekly pop-up that is on Fridays. St. James Food Pantry is the same thing because they're supplied by Northern Illinois. You can live anywhere and go there. So we are limited to Moraine Township. So it's probably many of the same people. And during COVID, it was wonderful because between SALT and the Highwood Library and Northern Illinois Food Bank and St. James, you could get food almost any day of the week.
And
Which
thank you
they
all
needed.
very much. And we're getting close to the end of our time. I do want to make mention of an organization that some of you may know about or may not, Mazon. So you can look them up at mazon.org. Mazon is nourishment, sustenance, portions in Jewish tradition. It's a national Jewish response to hunger. And it does do grants to local organizations. So if you guys haven't been in touch with Mazon, maybe you should see about that. Ask your grant writers to take a look. But it asks us to take a look at what we do and to take a portion of what we do and donate it. So certainly to our local institutions that we're hearing about tonight, Mazon got started by a guy named Leonard Fine. You may have heard his name, a terrific Reform Jewish leader from the 70s and 80s. He wrote a book called Reform is a Verb, about Reform Judaism. And, that's the reason why we're Reform and not Reformed in the past tense. It's constantly changing. But Leonard Fine founded the group in 1985, and their principle at the start was, if you're having a big party, if you're having a bar mitzvah or a wedding or something like that, think about what it means to leave the corners of your field. They suggested give 3%. So 3% of what you're spending on the bar mitzvah meal, on the wedding feast, on the Thanksgiving dinner for the family, take 3% of that and donate it to Mazon, and they in turn will donate it around the country to places of need. So if you're looking for a national organization, that's one to think about as well. And I know that they do good work all around the country. And we are so thankful to have our guests, our panelists here tonight. Thank you so much. We look forward to continuing to volunteer, to continue to doing work with all of you, to do what we can to live up to the ideas of our tradition, to take care of those who are in need. Thanks everybody for coming out tonight.
Thank you for hosting, and thank
you.
you for all you're doing for our community. Thank you.
You're
And
welcome.
when do you have 1
Thank
minute
you.
for us?
Yeah, just
Thank you.
quickly, thank you everyone for joining tonight, and please mark Tuesday, December 14th on your calendars, when Tal Schneider, who is one of Israel's preeminent journalists, will join us in the sanctuary, as well as virtually, to address gender, politics, and Israel, how Israeli female politicians can overcome a conservative and militaristic society, and watch Makom at home for our other Tuesday nights with Tikkun Olam programming. Thanks again for being here, and see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for organizing it.
Thanks everybody. Thank you all for being
Thank you.
here.
Bye.
Take care.